Umado is also in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. And thank you for taking time out of your the incident of your passway. I saw you
in the thick of it.
In the thick of it.
Except of course that a week before then I also led a protest in Lagos here. My 1 million march. So let's not go into
that. And the security consultant is the only security consultant in our midst, Mr. Onuk.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, let me begin with you, the security consultant. I want to assume that you must be familiar with the processes of taking things out of stores, especially public offices. So I was just wondering, is it possible for such a magnitude of machines to just grow wings and get missing in 5 months, and no official has been able to raise any form of dust until recently when somebody spoke up?
Well, in this country, unfortunately, almost everything is possible. But but looking at it from security point, IT-wise, information technology-wise, we really don't know how INEC has its offices, whether they're just locked or people have to type in pins to get in and out. But for something of this magnitude, my thinking is people know. It's not something that probably just one person is involved. People know for something this large. People have collaborated and circumvented the system, and from the reports it looks like, but for the audit, it would have just gone unnoticed.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked that question, and I'll still stay with you, is Mr. Idowu, the INEC chairman, chief press secretary, was reported to have said that considering the volume, the theft might have taken place unnoticed over a slightly drawn-out period.
Okay, well, let's look at the stats. We are talking about 1,300 and something machines. What gives us the most worry in the IT industry really when it comes to security is actually the number of the hard disk. Okay. That's about 2,980 thereabout. That's about 30% of we're looking at the hard disk alone now. 30% of the entire figure of 9,000 something. So for 30% of equipment to get missing, it's possible.
Where the data is stored.
Yeah, where the data is stored, which, well, they're telling us really that there's no data, and you can probably come to that later on. But for it to go unnoticed either means some people weren't diligent enough, or some people let it pass. But the good thing again is the audit showed it, and they were good enough to actually tell us Nigerians that this is what happened. But it couldn't have gone unnoticed.
Malaki, my mind is just picturing a huge store in INEC office with several padlocks on it. The padlock suddenly grew wings. People or some persons, because I don't believe there's only one person who's involved in this thing, walks in there, carries the equipment, whether it's one at a time or two at a time, goes through security in the INEC office, passes through the security at the INEC gate, carrying all this equipment, and I'm saying to myself, something is wrong, something is not right, Malaki.
That mind of yours will be agitated further to wander even larger, cover a wider scope. And remember that only recently, our dear President made a proposal that once again provoked us, namely that we needed one single term of 6 years for elected executive officers in this country, and predicated it on one selling point, namely that the cost of election has become unbearable for the country. When I remember that, and in retrospect, I reconcile it with what we have at hand now, it adds up in a particular way. Just as we promulgate electoral acts each time we want to have elections, that same way we go into the business of buying afresh, procuring all the equipment that we need to conduct each election. That, in my view, is the cost of the election that the president is referring to. So, my own worry, away from the way your mind is wandering, is to say, what then makes this exercise very expensive? It is that each time when we have to have an election, we are coming back to ground zero to deal with certainly all the activities that we had passed, we had settled. The same argument goes for removal of oil subsidy. We are feeding a cartel, we are just making it lucrative for them. Whose responsibility it is to identify that cartel, deal with them according to law, and then by so doing refuse to transfer the burden to the Nigerian people. It is that of the government. The security expert has spoken. For me, where I'm bothered is how would these items, like he said, develop wings and legs overnight? What is the extent of collusion, what we call conspiracy? To what extent can that be possible without identifying persons who are responsible for, because you don't, this is not a pair of shoes. These are not pairs of shoes. These are part of the activities that compel this country to release as much as almost 100 billion naira. And because our memories are growing short each day by the frequency and impunity with which all of these things are happening, we are beginning to forget that almost unbudgeted for, we spent 100 billion. And today, what has come out of it is that if we do nothing, as we are bound to believe, we will need to spend more of that. So it will be idle for any president, no less ours, to continue to decry the direct consequence of abdication of responsibility, dereliction of duty. So for me, your mind is, I'm even wondering more how and why we must continue on this path. Okay. As of now, somebody ought to have resigned, lost his job. A lot more ought to be arrested.
So we'll come to that.
Oh, okay, let me rest it.
Chief Adegboye, Barrister Oguma made a point that many of us have said over and over. And for example, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to the last 21 years since General Babangida retired. Transition process. Since that time, every time we've had to hold an election, we've had to go back to the basics every time to repurchase the things we purchased the last time. So one would be correct to say it's become a tradition that after election, the equipment are disseminated and whichever way, because they're no longer in the store 4 years after, discarded. Some will say shared, some will say looted, whatever. What we know for sure is that 4 years down the line, those equipments are usually no longer in the store and we purchase new ones. So is there a sense in which one could say that the officials at INEC, who must have perpetrated this act, are also following that tradition of, the election is over, why are we keeping these things here? Why don't we discard them so that we'll have space in the store for new ones that we purchase the next time? Is there an offense in that?
Very interesting. Let me start by saying that I'm getting fatigued discussing about Nigeria because it's become a huge joke. Africa's tallest midgets. This is very serious. And I think that in other jurisdictions, what they use to better the lives of the people, to drive the economy, to make life meaningful for the people, money is a major cause here. We throw money at everything. Even when you're supposed to come up with ideas and find solutions to problems, we throw money at it because we don't work very hard for our money. Nigeria does not work very hard. I mean, it's just crude oil. And if ideas are not involved, you get buffeted by all of this. I mean, are the machines stolen? Are they missing? Either way, in my little knowledge of administrative law and administrative mechanism, there must be accountability. In this studio, you must have a studio manager. And if something gets missing, the first person to call is the studio manager.
True.
Where is this thing?
True.
If he has delegated responsibility, he would point to another person. When I was leaving, I handed over to. So, how can we be saying that the DDC machines are missing and somebody at some time
has been
arrests has not been made, and yet, well, maybe because the entire system is becoming cataclysmic. Fundamental problems. They believe that if people who are up there are stealing billions of, well, in your newspaper review was reported that civil servants allegedly stole $3 billion
in a particular
year. Why would a storekeeper not believe that? Why would a storekeeper not believe that? Well, this is my own opportunity to also. It sounds trivial, but I am aching. It gives me a lot of concern. As a matter of fact, nothing surprises me about Nigeria anymore. We don't have good news. What you hear is SSS office bombed, Joint Task Force operations. So you just be wondering.
All of these unpleasant news items are also garnished with good news from time to time. I mean, for example, we see our lawmakers busy, doing their job. Some of the good news is that they visit sites, inspect projects, they discuss issues, they screen people. So those are some of the good news items that are coming from our public domain directly.
That's another way to look at it. How good is the good? I don't know. But I want to tell you that when Professor Ewu was the chairman of INEC, we procured machines. After 2007 elections, where were the machines?
Is it that Nigeria has so much money it can waste so much of it?
I don't understand. Must we squander our collective patrimony? The truth of the matter is that the system is not collapsing. It's collapsed. Short of calling for an emergency, whatever that means, we just must do something very, very gently. Otherwise, we will be in trouble. We're already in trouble. Because life has become brutish, nasty, and short. Anytime you go and you come back, you just thank God that we're.
Okay.
Thank you for
today. All right. Prof, I think back to when these machines were coming into the country for the elections, and there was a lot of hue and cry about them being, they're not DDC machines, they're just a laptop and a webcam. Yeah. So why are you calling it a big name? It's not this. So if indeed they were data capture machines, I would want to conjecture that they're absolutely useless except for the purpose of data capture. If that is the case, Professor, why are storekeepers and INEC staff now cutting away data capture machines? What would they be wanting to do with data capture machines? Who are they capturing? Whose data?
Well, good. I share the sentiments that my previous speakers have expressed about the distress that every Nigerian should be feeling about this country. We are talking about the missing data capturing machines. There are so many things to talk about. What was responsible for this is the same thing that was responsible for our inability to have electricity, to run our homes, to have good roads to ply, to have functional education, every facet of our life.
And what would this thing be, probably?
Well, the thing is that we pretend to love Nigeria, but we hate Nigeria the most. Because I can't fathom any reason in the world where decency, where discipline, where patriotism exists, that things like this will be happening in Nigeria. Apart from whatever is going to cost Nigeria to replace, have people sat down for a moment to think about the implication of it for the image of the country? If you travel out, you will marvel at the rate people look down on Nigerians. No matter how big you may sound or seem to be, they just regard you as people coming from nowhere. Nigeria has been endowed and blessed by God to the extent that many other countries are envious. But what have we made of it?
No, Professor.
Now, I have not answered the question of what they want to do.
I wanted to ask you directly, since you also remember, then please answer the question.
Okay, good. I think...
Because you said the reason why we have this situation, the development at INEC, is the same reason we can adduce for poor roads, poor infrastructure, poor medical services and all of that. And I said, what is that?
Corruption. Everybody thinks that Nigeria, as an Eldorado, owes him or her something. So everybody must get his or her own share of the cake. So those people who are in charge feel that, well, if these people are sharing billions and they didn't remember us, what the hell are we doing? And here is something that you can make some money from. Okay, and it baffles one again that even if it was just a room with a padlock, I mean, INEC ought to have had people in charge of that room. How on earth will these machines grow wings and they will fly out without anybody seeing them? But because these things have been happening in the past and nothing has been done, the same way our best brains have been wasted without any clue up to today. Okay, so everybody thinks he can do whatever he likes and get away with it.
Now, Professor, as someone who trains information managers and information disseminators, looking at the information that was given by the press secretary to the INEC chairman, how would you analyze the information that was given? Because as a layman, for example, I would have expected that he would go a step further to tell us, oh, certain officials have been questioned, have been apprehended. This is the stage of investigation. We're looking in this direction for this and this. But he just told us, well, these are the numbers that were found missing. And then on October 16, an internal audit was conducted, and this was where we found out, in-house audits.
The answer to that question goes back to what we are saying. Nobody cares. Everybody thinks that nobody will care. So what the hell do you need further information for? So the man probably thought if he told you that, then you would take it, and in a week or two you will forget, and that will be the end of it. So when the next election comes, we will now be asking for several millions or billions to purchase. I mean, it shows the levity with which our officials treat Nigerians.
Now, Prof, I will take that from where you stopped to Mr. Malaki Gumadu. There are those who have said that in the past, when Professor Jega said we were going to make purchases of machines, many people cried out at that time that why not audit the previous one that was bought by Professor Iwu and find out where they ended up, so that the people who did that will be apprehended, because there are also people who are still with INEC. And that if you don't do that, they will do it again. Is there a sense in which one could say it was because those things have gone on in the past without any sanction or punishment? That's why it's happening now.
We even went further. We insisted that certain members of the commission who were discredited, not by us, but by tribunals who sat over disputation that arose from the exercise they conducted.
Yeah. The 2007.
I remember that I mentioned names on this station, should be relieved of their duty if they are not prepared to resign. We also insisted that as a nation, there is no way we will continue with this culture of impunity and expect to achieve any form of change. We reminded Nigerians that under the Electoral Act, we're not discussing the criminal law now, even the Electoral Act, including the one that has just been promulgated, section 149, 150, INEC itself can prosecute some of those people who have been indicted by competent courts of law and tribunals. So, over the years, we have developed a culture of impunity. We expected that culture, and almost every other thing by that culture is delivered in perfidy. Let me explain. And I think it is no longer a problem. If you watch the defense team, or rather the team mobilized by Babasumi, we have a lead counsel, Bamidela, who is a senior lawyer to me. But if you watch, it has to do with those of us who claim to be human rights activists, who find that if you don't maximize some of these cases to expose the poverty of where we are now, people will think we're still under the military. As a fact, let me tell you, as a fact, on that day when he was released, I had 3 other, if you like, commoners who have been in prison and over whose matter we were in the magistrate court for more than 48 days. Therefore, these things are happening almost every other time.
So it's now, because they've been happening.
Of course.
That's why this book can have the option.
Recall also that it's not just about INEC. When they finish their legislative year or tenure, what happens to the vehicles? Are we not told that they need so many billions to renovate buildings? When, if you probe further, you will find that the same exercise were probably conducted a year before it.
We've even had reports of governors who are removed by tribunals, and when they leave government house, their aides will cut away government property. And it happens in several states.
So what are we talking about? When we started shouting that the battle against corruption has collapsed, they said no, they are nihilists, alarmists. When the Human Rights Watch, a credible, independent and international organization, came out with their report, I also listened to the spokesperson of EFCC laboring against himself to justify what is totally untenable.
Mr. Gumadu, I do beg your pardon. I have to interrupt.
Okay.
Because we need to manage our time. I do beg your pardon.
Very well.
Now, Mr. Onok.
God, we have so much to say. We're not long.
There's a lot to say.
When we demonstrated, let me land on this score. When I led the
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Just 10 seconds.
Yes, just 10 seconds.
We had the challenge of deciding what to demonstrate against.
There was too many.
Overwhelmingly, we said, okay, let's start with the power crisis. Because we have so many, including insecurity, unemployment, and so on and so forth. Restructuring of the country. 2 more seconds. At the end of the day, sir, at the end of the day, the issue was even the life you want to improve, and that was my argument, by improving electricity. Like he said, it's no longer there. Today you hear in Boronu, a family of 8 with a pregnant woman completely, wiped out. The next day, it is that the woman pregnant, ripped up. So we're not wrong. That was my 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I don't understand your passion, and at any rate, I think this is a wide spread.
Let them continue. Let them continue.
Mr. Onuk, now we hear of hard disks being removed. Of course, you and I know that it takes a while for you to unscrew the back of a laptop to get this kind of things out. But that's not even where I'm going. I want you to explain the security implication of that. People's data has been sold into wrong hands.
Well, that's actually the immediate effect of this theft, I would say. Beyond the fact that we already spent money, these machines were probably need to be
about 2,900, almost 3,000
exactly.
hard disks have been removed.
Exactly. Now, that tells you that it's possible that beyond the fact that we need to make money from these machines, somebody or some people need information. If we heard from the records, I think we had like 6.2 million people registered in Lagos.
Yeah.
30% of those?
Yeah, 30% of those comes to about 1.86 million or so. Now let's just safely assume that the data is spread across equally on all of the hard disks. Even though that's not the case, some will have more data, some will have less. But let's just assume that that's the safest point. We have about 1.8 million data on individuals lost or somewhere that's not safe.
In some wrong hand.
Exactly. Now INEC has made have addressed that issue in a way by telling us that the data is in their secure store in their
servers. They have a central location.
Exactly, and
yeah, but it is still.
And but the angle from which
I'm actually going.
Yeah, because I want you to really touch on that area for us as a security expert. Now Nigeria is talking. Everything ping now.
Yeah.
We're going to be a cashless society. So we'll be needing biometrics for virtually everything. Vehicle plate numbers, driver's license, among several other things. Biometrics. Now people's biometrics, about 2 million people, nearly 2 million people's biometrics are in wrong hands right now.
Yeah.
And you and I know what people can do when they have your biometrics, when they have all of these things. In a society where we're going biometrics, as it were,
exactly.
What's the implication of that on national security?
Well, it's hard to actually place the value or implication in terms of quantity, but it's something that could be way damaging, not just for the individuals, but for the country as a whole. If we have a good percentage of people who control the state, for example, and that data is out, certain things could be done. You could be impersonated. That happens outside the world, and it's probably going to start here in Nigeria. Before the ATM cards were introduced with the chip, people had their ATM cards in their pocket, and other people went to ATMs with their information on it and withdrew money.
Yeah.
So the implication of this is far, it's hard to actually place something on it. But again, I need to point out that INEC is saying that everything is off the hard disk, but they need to know again that despite the fact that those things are off the hard disk, whether they formatted it or not.
They didn't say it's off the hard disk, they just said they have a backup.
Yes, they have a secured backup, yeah.
So it's still in the hard disk, but
okay, let's even assume best case scenario that is not on the hard disk. If someone is after data, you can pick it up. Whether you format the hard disk or not, you can pick it up. To clean data, you need special tools to do that. But the best thing that would have happened from the very start.
Mr. Donald, what you're saying is the scenario where when the machines all got to the headquarters, all the information was removed to a safe system, and all the hard disks were wiped clean. What you are saying is that even though they were wiped clean, those who know the technology can still access the information that was on that hard disk. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So the first
that is scary.
The first thing that would have been done would have been to secure the information getting into the hard disk by simply encrypting them. So even if you have that thing to retrieve, you're retrieving encrypted data which you can't use. I don't think that was done.
That wasn't done, as far as I know. Whether, Mr. Adib, we have to close now. We have to close the segment. Now, this incident has happened, right? But because we don't want to just go to bed, as Professor has said, that they expect that, oh, they've told them the information, they should hear it, eat their food and
set up committees.
What should we be doing as a nation to prevent a recurrence or to address this particular development?
We have said it repeatedly. We must enforce our laws. This culture of impunity must stop. Away from that, obviously, if criminal acts have been perpetrated, offenders or suspects should be apprehended and prosecuted, as the case may be. There's no way this Dasalia could have been perpetrated without a grand conspiracy having taken place and a criminal jurisprudence. Conspiracy is by far the most serious offense because it involves 1 or 2 or 3 people, and ipso facto, very dangerous. For me, they will go the usual Nigerian investigations and all that. But in concluding, we must now de-emphasize elections. Nigeria is at a stage where we have to go back to the brass tacks. Elections in themselves are incapable. I've said it here and I'm repeating it. We've had elections over and over again. Predominantly, our rural folks have not benefited. They constitute more than 80% of Nigerian population.
Even the urban folks.
They have not benefited. In other jurisdiction, it's a way of getting fair-minded, God-fearing, intellectually able and endowed into governance so that people can live a modest life. Not anything out of the place. Basic things of life, make them available. Elections all over the world or in different jurisdictions do that. But has failed to do that in Nigeria. It is because of systemic failure.
Okay, Mr. Dewi, we've got to round up. Your last word, sir.
My last word is that, as you have said, we see elections as a winner takes all. We need to de-emphasize that. And we need to, whatever system we are going to introduce, we must ensure that appropriate value is placed on service, not on what we can get from it, but on what we can give to Nigeria. Okay. And lastly, offenders must be prosecuted. They must be found out wherever they are. So many things have gone wrong with this country that if we are not very prayerful, God himself will be angry with us, and that will be the most dangerous.
Mr. Umaru.
Prof, that idea...
Your last word, I said.
I actually want to round off that way. But that idea of...
prayer.
No. Getting to know what you must do for Nigeria is usually fueled by a reciprocity of purpose. You don't become patriotic because you must be patriotic. You become patriotic because you have to be patriotic. And that usually will come from the government.
Definitely.
Everywhere where you have it, it is because people know there's this mutual interplay of the forces. People know that they have to.
Definitely.
Now, rounding off is to say that, has it amazed you why we are not in short supply of what to discuss every week? Nigeria has become a theater of absurdity. Well, for new media, if it doesn't smell, it doesn't sell. But my last take would be that more than ever before, people should gradually begin to be organized. It will happen, but my worry is, will it meet us when we are not ready to make it purposeful?
Okay. Now,
okay, well, I would say, first of all, save Nigeria's time, our time. Let's not always go out, register for this plate number, do this for INEC, do this for National Identity Management Commission and all that story. Nigeria's data should be consolidated by one agency, probably the National Identity Management Commission, who probably have an upper hand in that. And all of these other agencies should plug in. All I need to do when I'm going for registration is to either put my number, put my fingerprint, and that's all. I'm registered, and I go back to where I'm coming from. INEC doesn't need to know my name, but if they need to, they can meet name C and get it. So save time, we save cost, and we are efficient and secure.
Thank you so very much. Our panelists have spoken. INEC needs to begin to look more in the direction of what is efficient, what is effective, rather than what will I profit from this exercise. And of course, I like the point about our leaders are quick to always tell us, to quote what JFK said about, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yes, in those climes, it is given. It is just given. It is not even contestable that the country will take care of you. It's going to take care of you, whether you ask or you don't. He knows what to do, and he does it even without you asking. And so it was apt for the leaders in those places to go ahead and ask the people to do for their country, because they know the country will do for them. So here, our leaders need to be on top of the game. This particular incident should not go the way of the others, and we want to put cynics like Chief Adegbuyi to say, because he said, you are sure nothing will come out of it.
Based on what has happened in the last year.
And I'm throwing a challenge, to the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, to the INEC, INEC Commissioner in Lagos State, and INEC Chairman, to defeat the cynicism of the likes of Chief Adegbuyi.
We're all pleasantly surprised.
And prosecute some people.
Yes, and make it public so that
punish some people for this theft.
So that INEC officials in Bayelsa and Abia